This video is an answer key for what would be worksheet 34 for on-level and worksheet 30 for pre-AP on area of trapezoids. For each, you are asked to show your work step by step, including writing down the formula you will use, the substituted values, simplifying all the way until your solution, and providing the correct units of measure. All of these are trapezoids. Trapezoids are four-sided polygons that have one set of parallel sides. As a result, their formula to calculate area, or the amount of space that each shape occupies or takes up or covers, is pretty complex. But you saw in your lessons how it can connect to the area of a parallelogram, and that would be done by adding both bases, which are the parallel sides of a trapezoid, multiplying by the height, and then taking half of that, because two trapezoids form a parallelogram, but we're only interested in one trapezoid, which is half of a parallelogram. So every single problem should have the formula area equals 1/2 b1 plus b2 times height. There would be a check just for having that already. Then for the substitution, my set of parallel sides are the 5 and the 8. It does not matter which one you say is base 1 and which one you say is base 2, because you're going to be adding them together, and with adding, the order does not matter. The height would be the distance between the two bases and is perpendicular to both. In this figure, 4 meters is the height. 5 meters is extra information. You'll notice it connects at an obtuse angle and an acute angle with the bases. So this is not the height. The one that connects at a 90-degree angle would be the height. From here you simplify. Parentheses come first. 8 meters plus 5 meters equals 13 meters. You can multiply in any order that you want. I like to multiply the total of the bases first times the height. 13 times 4 is 52, and meters times meters is meters squared. And then half of 52 is 26 meters squared. You would get credit for your substitution step, and then you would get credit for 26, and you would get credit for having meters squared or square meters. On number 2, the trapezoid is rotated around, but that's okay. The bases are still going to be parallel to one another, and I see that these are running parallel side by side, just like train tracks. It does not matter which one you say is base 1 and which one you say is base 2. The first step would be substituting, and then the height needs to connect at a 90-degree angle with both bases, and in this case it would be 2.75 centimeters. I'm going to bring everything else down, and now my substitution step is complete. I'll now simplify. 5.6 and 2.2 would be 7.8 centimeters. This time I'm going to go in a slightly different order. I'm going to take half of 7.8 because I can do that mentally. That would be 3.9 centimeters. And then I'll multiply that by 2.75. It's okay to solve in a different order because it should not affect the outcome of your area. 9 times 5 is 45, carry the 4, 63 plus 4 more, 67, 18 plus 6 more is 24, placeholder, 3 times 5 is 15, 3 times 7 is 21, plus another 22, 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 more is 8, 1, 2, 3 decimal places. So I believe that my area is 10.725 and centimeters times centimeters is centimeters squared. For problem number 3, this one is also rotated, but that's okay because I can see the sides that are parallel to each other. These are running side by side, so these are the bases. I'll use 2 centimeters for base 1 and I'll use 4 centimeters for base 2. It's okay if those are flipped. The height connects at a 90-degree angle with both of them, and in this case it's 2.7 centimeters. And now I'll bring everything down, the parentheses, the plus sign, the half. My substitution step is complete, and now I'll start to simplify. 2 plus 4 is 6 centimeters. I'll also do half of 6 in my head, which is 3 centimeters. And then 2.7 times 3 would be 8.1, and centimeters times centimeters is centimeters squared. It's okay if you simplify it in a different order, it should not affect your outcome. For number 4, the scenario says that MJ's living area is shaped like a trapezoid with base 1 of 11 yards, base 2 of 9 yards, and a height of 5.6 yards. And what's the area of this living space? I'll start by substituting values. 11 yards for base 1, 9 yards for base 2, and 5.6 yards for the height. I'll bring down the half, the operations. Substitution is now done. Parentheses first, 9 plus 11 is 20 yards, and then 5.6 yards is the height. I really like that I've been able to do half of certain numbers in my head using mental math. So I'm going to do half of 20, which is 10, and then I'll multiply 10 by 5.6. Anytime I multiply by 10, I can use the power of 10 shortcut, which is just scooching the decimal to the right, and that would be 56. Yards times yards is yards squared. Finally, for number 5, I'm given an area of 48 meters squared. I'll bring down the half, and I'll be working backwards. I'll let the 5 be base 1. I could easily make the 11 also be base 1. It doesn't matter. And the height, again, is unknown. The height is not 6.2. The height is x. It connects perpendicular with both the base values. The substitution step is complete, and then I'll start to simplify before I solve. Five meters plus 11 meters is 16 meters. Half of 16 is 8 meters. Finally, I can see 8 times x is equal to 48. I would undo that using dividing by 8. This would leave the x, and 48 divided by 8 would be 6 meters, possibly for the height. And then I'll just fill it back in mentally and check my work. If this were a 6, I would have 16. Half of 16 is 8. And then 8 times 6 would in fact be 48. I'll check it another way just to make sure. If I did 16 times 6, that would be 96, and half of 96 is still 48. So I feel pretty confident to say that the missing height measurement, or x, is 6 meters. Every problem has 4 checks: formula, substitution, solution, and units of measure. And since that's 4 checks times 5 problems, that's 20 checks, and they'd be 4 points each.